Hey YouTube, Darren here, and I'm back with another episode in the SalvinosJR 81 Monte Carlo build series. If you're new here, it is a series. I'll go ahead and link to the rest of those episodes right up top here. Please note that our goal here is to bring you tips and tools for improving your modeling experience, as well as promoting the scale modeling community as a whole. So if you like what you see, please go ahead and consider subscribing, ringing that bell. You'll be notified whenever we upload new content. I also want to take just one real quick second before we kick this off to plug again our new Patreon page. Link is right down here. Check that out when you get a chance. Please know all pledges are completely voluntary. We're still going to continue to put out content as usual, but do know that you know, any contributions, any pledges contribute to directly to the channel and help us produce better content for you, the viewer, as well as helping us to fund some giveaways and stuff we have planned in the future. So if you get a chance, check that out, and we really appreciate it. So in this episode, which I had enough footage to do almost an hour, so I cut it way back. We are going to talk about doing some painting. We're going to talk about how I mask the paint line for the silver and the black on this kit. We're going to talk about decals a little bit, and we're going to talk about clear coats, a little bit more about clear coats. So enough of me rambling. If you have any suggestions, real quick, if you have any suggestions for future content, please let us know in the comments below. And you know, if you like what you see here, thumbs up. If you don't, get thumbs down. We could take the criticism. So enough of me bending on your ear. Let's go ahead and get on into the video. I'll see you at the very end. I am preparing to go ahead and shoot the body with the first coat of black. And as you see, I've got everything here all primed up. I've got it sanded smooth. It's been wiped down and cleaned, taped, and it is ready for black. But before I did shoot it, I want to test the different blacks. In full disclosure, I did shoot this one time and the paint came out absolutely horrible. So I ended up sanding it all down, wet sanding everything down flat, go ahead and priming it again and redoing everything. And I decided this time, well, maybe I did something wrong with the paint. I wasn't sure, so I decided to go ahead and test it side by side with another of my known good methods. And I'm not gonna get into that paint. I've talked to the manufacturer and they're working on trying to figure it out. But here on the camera, you can see the difference in the two. Now, these were both sprayed the same way and left to dry for about an hour. And they were both wet, gloss black looking paint. The one on the left obviously has fogged up and has really turned crappy, but the one on the right stayed really well. And this was just straight paint. And I'm just going to go ahead and stick with my tried and true. And that tried and true, folks, is just regular old Tamiya gloss black, and that is because that's what I've got. I don't have anything fancy right now, so it's got to be the good old tried and true Tamiya black, flat or gloss black. Now, I didn't do it here, but I've done this in the past, and if you'll give me just a second, I'm going to break out a project here. I'm going to show you a finish. Now, this is a project that I did with my local model group. We did for one of the local contests, and actually ended up going to nationals. We got invited to Chattanooga to display this at the IPMS Nationals, but it was codenamed NAS plane. And this is my Corsair that I did in Danica Patrick's GoDaddy livery, and Mike's decals. I forget which kit it was, but note the gloss paint. That gloss paint is nothing more than X28 Tamiya part green. And I think there's been some other people that have tested it. As a matter of fact, I know Will Patson has tested this method, and it works really, really well. And that is, you go ahead and paint, get your gloss down, and then once your gloss is down, you give it a good wet coat of Mr. Color Leveling Thinner. And that's what I'm going to do on this with the black. And what we should have is one hell of a really nice looking black gloss paint job when it's all said and done. So how do I do that? Well, I mix my Tamiya paint, actually 50-50. I do that with all my Tamiya paints anyhow, with Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, and spray it. And then I have my second airbrush loaded with just straight Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to give it a good wet coat after that. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this, and when I get ready, you'll see it'll be a wet black coat. I'm going to come back on and I'm going to shoot the MLT leveling thinner, and I'm going to show you that technique. Then we'll let it dry, and then tomorrow I'm going to come on, we're going to look at the results. So I got my paint cup all loaded up, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit all of my hard to reach areas down here, get those knocked out first, around the undersides and inside the fenders. And I'm going to go ahead and start spraying this. Now, I'm not going to sit here and bore you and talk about this entire time. I'm just going to go ahead and do it, and if anything of importance comes up, I will break in and let you know. So go ahead and enjoy the accelerated view. So I ran out, but that's okay. I'm putting this on thick, my friends, because I do plan on coming back and doing some wet sanding and polishing. So I want to make sure that I have good thick coats on there. I can already tell there's some junk in the paint, and I'm going to want to make sure that I have enough paint on here that I'm going to be allowed to wet sand some of the imperfections out. Now that said, the roof and the top of this car is going to be silver, but I still want to be able to sand out the imperfections, because I'm going to be laying that silver paint down on top of this black base, and silver metallics show everything. So, and then I've got to get it thick enough as well to where I can get the imperfections there sanded out too. So. Okay, so I think it's a good thick coat, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to give that just a second to kind of sit there. And over here I have my cup full of Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, and I'm going to go ahead and hook this airbrush up if I keep from spilling it all over myself. And now what this does is this helps that paint flow, or just kind of level out, if you will. And you got to be real careful, because at this point you can really loosen that paint up and make it run, right? You don't want that. And I can see in the reflection where it's getting wet, and that's what I want. Now, if this is your first time doing this, please don't be afraid to mess it up. Like I said, I had screwed up with that other paint. Well, I don't know that I screwed up. The other paint man, I think it was the paint issue. But And you know, okay, so it's a setback. What do? You go in, you clean it all off, and you start again. That's just the way we learn. So don't be afraid to mess it up. Just get in there and do it. Yeah, a little bit of junk in the paint, but we'll get that sanded out. Hell, we may even sand it and do another coat. We'll see. Yeah, get this junk on there. I'm not spraying in a spray booth. I did clean everything really, really well, but you know, if you don't have some sort of filtration system, this happens. No big deal. Okay, so there we go. I'm gonna let that set up, and we will come back here in a little bit and see how she did. I think I see some areas around the window that are gonna need to be touched up. Not a big deal. Yeah, but I really like the way that finish looks. So, folks, there she is. I need about an hour break. Let this stuff set, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at it. Look at that reflection on the roof. Oh, it's shiny. All the black is now done, and as you can see, I think it turned out fairly well. There is, you know, a little bit of junk in there. There's a little bit in the hood, and it's a little bit orange peel, but that's to be expected because, I mean, hey, I'm spraying in my basement, so, you know, it is what it is. That said, I'm going to fix that. So the next thing to do here is going to be masking for the silver, and the silver that I'm going to use is this new Tamiya lacquer, LP11. From what I understand, this is some really good stuff. I haven't shot it yet, so this is going to be a first. And on this car, the whole roof, front end, roof, and everything up from about here is going to be silver. And that is going to be marked off by the decal. So we're lucky we have a decal to cover the actual paint line. So what I've done is I've taken the decals. This is the actual, for this side right here, this is the actual decal here, the orange and black, that's going to separate the silver from the black. So I want to use this and put it on here to try and figure out where my mask line needs to be. So what I've done, went ahead and printed the decals, and I'm going to cut these out individually, and I'll end up taping them on both sides to get them where I need them, and then doing a reverse tape. So I'll tape just above it, pull off my decal, and that's going to give me my line underneath. And I'm going to show you all a little bit more about that as we get to that point. So off camera, what I'm going to do is go ahead and get these cut out and get them placed and taped in, and then I'll come back and I'll show you all the rest of that process. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go get these cut, these decal copies cut, and get them in place. And once those are in, I will, you know what, belay that. I am going to wet sand this top area up here. There's a little bit of junk in here. I want to get that out before I spray the silver. I'm not worried about the lower part, but I'm going to wet sand this, then come back and lay my decals in, and I'll be back to talk to you guys. So, see you shortly. So I've cut out the decal from the sheet here, and I thin it out, and I've got it taped in place. And then what I did was I took my trusty old Infinity Easy Cut, which I know y'all have heard me talk about before, and I cut myself a 1mm piece of tape across here, and I have laid that all the way across the top of this decal. Okay, and that outlines it. So what I know is that the decal itself, from measuring it, got it right here for measuring the decal, the actual decal, is 1.5 millimeters thick. So if I take the decal thing off, like I'm doing right here, my printout, then I know if I cut you'll see it leaves the outline, right? And then I can cut a 1 millimeter piece of tape, right? And lay it inside here, take this top piece off, and that is going to be my tape line for black down. Everything above that would be silver. And then when I go to put the decals on, it's going to cover the actual tape line. So that is the theory. We're going to put it to practice. And so my next job here is going to be to cut that piece of tape and lay it out, and then tape this down. And once I get this side done, I'll come back and show you what it looks like. The other side, I'm going to go ahead and do off camera, but this one here, one step at a time. There she is. You don't see the tape. What you do is you do see my cutout decal, or my printed decal that I put on there. And it is actually, I'm trying not to touch this with my raw hand, but it is actually going to cover that tape line just fine. You see I've got it taped all the way around, and that is the official tape line. And I do have a little bit of goo on there from the tape, but that's fine. That'll sand off. A little goo gone, a little wet sand, and that'll be fine. So now I have to just go back and tape this. I do have to do the other side the same way I did this. Tape this down, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot that silver. And that's I want to get that done this evening, as I am heading out this weekend for Corvettes at Carlisle. So I want to make sure that I get this paint on there and it has a good solid 3 or 4 days to dry before I go start sanding on it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish tape the other side, and then I'll get everything taped up, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot silver. I'll show you what it's done once the silver's all done. Now, if you have any questions about this, or if there's anything further you guys want to see about how I tape this, please go ahead and leave a comment in the description below. I'll be more than happy to address it. One thing I'm not real happy about is that's back here. You see how this comes at an angle, that hockey stick? I can't find any real good pictures. Part of me wants to cut that and kind of bring it down more of a straight angle, but I don't know that that's correct. I don't know. Let me see what I can find. It'll be a surprise for y'all in the next segment. We'll see. On to the silver paint. As you can see here, I've made quite some progress since our last little segment, and I apologize. There was actually quite a bit of footage in there about decaling, and I lost it. And that file, for some reason, became corrupt, and it's now gone forever. So I will catch you up the best I can here. Now, a wheel might fall off. I just got the body set on here and the wheels set on there, but there she is, all decaled. What I'd done, you saw previously how I'd gotten my tape line all set up. I went ahead and sprayed the black or the silver. Then once I got everything sprayed, I went back and I did some wet sanding with some 1500 grit, then 1800 grit sandpaper and water, and then polished it through the 3 steps of my Tamiya polish, and I think it's come out very well. Now, I am to a point now where the decals have been setting for 2 days, but I'm trying to debate now, clear coat or not. And you know, it's come up in a couple of Facebook groups about the foil number 28 on the side, and is the clear going to dull that? And there's a possibility that that might happen, and I don't want to just shoot over the top of that. So I am going to go ahead and do a little experiment on my paint mule. And here you can see I've got the top of this Monte Carlo sprayed. Now this paint is nothing more than a mix of my Tamiya X1 gloss black, about 50-50 with Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, and that's it. I mean, a pretty good gloss finish as it is. That's 2 coats, but I want to make it glossier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go through the steps that I went through on the black. Then I've got a extra set of decals. I'm going to go ahead and put that foil 28 on there, and we are going to clear and buff and polish that and see how it turns out. So I want to take a second to explain to y'all how I go about polishing these, and it's much better than the 20 minutes of footage I have. I mean, doing nothing but polishing the top of a Monte Carlo. I use these simple little sanding sponges that I get off of Amazon, and I will link to these in the description below. Check them out. They're not super expensive, and they work great. Okay, they really work well. They come in a variety of grits, as you can see here. If you switch to the other camera, you'll see it's 1500 through 12,000. Basically, I just use these 3 up here for the most part, depending on what I'm doing. But I do aircraft canopies and all sorts of stuff with these sanding sponges. In this instance, I only use a 1500 and a 2400, and I just cut off a little piece as I need it. I get myself a little bit of water. They hold up very well with water, and that's what I do my wet sanding with, is these. And I sand for a couple minutes, dry it off, check it out. I don't go too long because I don't want to burn through the paint, but those are the little jewels I use to wet sand. And then I come back with just my easy to use Tamiya polishing compound. Comes rags, everything are color coded. Damp my finger with a little bit of polishing, and I buff those out. So, and it runs through, coarse first and then fine, and then you finish it up with the finishing paste. So that's my process, and the results you're fixing to see only took me about 20 minutes. You could take a long time doing it. Of course, the longer you take, the better results are going to be, obviously. But as you'll see next, 20 minutes was fine. So if y'all want to see more on it, or if you would like me to take all that footage and make a tutorial, well, activity in the comments below will dictate. If there's enough interest, then I'll go ahead and throw that into tutorial, and I'll throw up a separate polishing canopy or polishing paint. So let me know. So on with the rest of the video. Okay, so that's pretty good. It's not perfect, but then again, this is, I did this fairly quickly. Typically I would take a lot more time during the wet sanding process and polishing, but I wanted to get through this as quickly as I could so that I can get this decal on and work the clear and get this little tutorial piece taken care of. But I think you can see, the camera should show it fairly well, that it shined up really well. So I don't know if you can see the camera in there, but I'll try and see what I can see here on the screen. But it's really shiny. You can see the lights up there. Really good reflection. And of course, you take more time, you get a lot better result. And I did this fairly quickly. I think we've got 10 minutes, 15 minutes rolling on it. So, but that's pretty good for 15 minutes. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and decal it. You guys all know the decaling process. I got to let that sit up for several hours and dry, and then I can shoot the clear. It's got to set at least 24 hours, and I'm going to come back and buff it out, and we'll see what we got. Okay, so I went ahead and decaled, let it set up for a few days, and got it right here. So let's go on down here to the bench, take a look. As I thought, the reflectivity is fine. It shows up with no issue. It did not dull up the foil at all. But what it did do, take a closer look, it did wrinkle that decal. Now, I hit Mike Herman up and asked him specifically about this wrinkling, and all he told me was he did not recommend clear coat over any decals. I have mixed emotions on that. One, I've been clear coating decals on aircraft for a lot of years and I've had no problems. No, I don't typically decal over foil, but that's odd. And you know, I even did it on this side door. I did another test, and on this one here was done with Mr. Color leveling thinner and Tamiya clear. And I thought, well, maybe it's a little bit too hot, so I went ahead and tried it just with Tamiya X20A thinner and clear, and it still started to wrinkle it. So I'm not real sure what's going on with the foil. Now I'm going to show you just real quick. I was also been working on my Miller body, and you can see that the roof of that has just come out gorgeous. I'm trying to get that series wrapped up, but on the nose of this Miller, we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the Miller build video, but there was some wrinkling right up here, and let me see if I can't get up there where you can see that. You can see it in the just that corner. Now I think that that's something happened and it wasn't adhered well there. I'm not real sure, but that did cause some wrinkling. But in any case, he did say that, you know, these cup cars, those were stickers that went over the cup cars, so they stood up. I do buy that. It's absolutely correct, and it's not like today's cars where it's wrapped. The cars were actually painted and then stickers applied, so you still would have some raised type detail there, and so I buy that. No big deal. But I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with these foil decals and why it's wrinkling. So if anybody out there knows what may be causing that, please let us all know in the comments below. And that's it. So I do want to get one more shout out for the Patreon page. If y'all get a chance, go over and check that out. Don't forget that I am looking for comments on the polishing tutorial, so leave your comments below. And until next time, let's all be good to each other, and y'all have a good one. Good night.